Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's so nice to see so many of you on this call, on this conversation that we're about to have. It's a really important one. Before I introduce our speakers, I just want to take a moment to explain the motivation for this evening's conversation. So, as a staff, Bethel has decided to. Our professional team has decided to tackle an issue this year around a social justice issue. And the issue that we chose to focus on is hunger and housing. And this is a really important issue that for us to address, and especially in our community. We might not think it because we live in the north end of New Rochelle and we happen to live in a fairly affluent community. But New Rochelle, the city that Bethel is located in, actually has quite a need. And we are very fortunate to have wonderful organizations and a wonderful organization in Hope Community Services that works to address this need. But before I introduce our speakers, I just want to take a moment to speak about the Jewish value of caring for the hungry and those in need of housing. So as we know, the main story of our most sacred text, the Torah, is about a people who are homeless. It's about a people perpetually wandering, looking for a home to settle in. And while they're in this journey of wandering, they are without food. There are two examples in the Torah that I want to point to that teach us about the mitzvah, the imperative of feeding the hungry. The first is God's example, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One's model. The entire time that the Israelites were wandering in the desert, they never went hungry because God sustained them with manna. Right there, I could end there. And you would already know that if we want to bring holiness into the world, one of the ways in which we do that is by feeding people. We could take a page out of God's book and feed people who are in need, because that's what God does. God sustains those who are hungry. And then we learn that from the Torah and from our own people's experience wandering from slavery to freedom on their way to the promised land. The second example I want to point to is every morning when we daven, when we come to shul to pray, there's a text that we rarely say, but it's a teaching that from Mishnah Peah, which teaches us that there are certain things in this world that we can do for which there are no limit. There's no limit to this mitzvah that we can do. And the mitzvah that text points to, one of them is the mitzvah of Peah. Peah means corner. And there's a law in the Torah that teaches us that when someone has a field, they must leave the corners of the field for the poor. You are not allowed to harvest all of the grain of your field, but you have to leave the corners of your field for those who are in need. And there is no limit, says our rabbis, to how much you can give in this regard. I think it's a really important mitzvah. It's a really important lesson to us that we need to work to sustain and to help support those who are needy in our community. I am so privileged to have a conversation tonight with two people who are working tirelessly to feed and to house those in our community. I can think of no more holier work than the work that Lynette Goldberg and Walter Ritz engage in through Hope Community Services. So I just want to take a moment to introduce our speakers this evening. Walter Ritz is I'll highlight him for everybody. Walter Ritz is the Executive Director at Hope Community Services in New Rochelle. Mr. Ritz joined Hope in 2019 after spending time working at the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery in Manhattan, working on the response to Hurricane Sandy. His tenure at Hope has been mainly defined by his leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic, running one of Westchester County's largest emergency food pantries, which distributed over 2 million meals in 2020. Mr. Ritz introduced new programming in an effort to support his community, including senior deliveries and mobile pantry units, as well as Westchester's first kosher food pantry. Prior to his stint at the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery, Mr. Ritz previously served as the Housing Resource Program Director for Family Centers in Stamford, Connecticut, which included chairmanship of Connecticut's Opening Doors Continuum of Care, where he established the region's first provider-landlord collaborative. Mr. Ritz holds a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology from Fairfield University and an undergraduate degree in psychology from Western Connecticut State University. He lives in Valhalla, New York with his wife, Megan. Walter, we're so happy to have you with us.
So happy to be here.
Our other speaker this evening is Lynette Goldberg. Since 2018, Lynette has been president of Hope Community Services, a local organization in New Rochelle, as we know, that provides food, shelter, and support services for homeless and low-income individuals. Lynn is passionate about leading Hope and making it stronger for generations to come. As president of Hope, Lynette has led the successful search for a new executive director, refreshed the board with new members who bring renewed vision, ideas, and energy, recruited potential successor leaders and new volunteers, significantly expanded Hope's ability to respond to the exponential growth in client demand during the pandemic, supported the expansion of its community programs, founded a free summer day camp for Hope community children, and initiated a capital campaign for a new home and facilities for Hope Community Services. So Lynette, as a Bat Bayit, as someone who is a Bethel member, we are so happy and privileged to have you join us this evening as well.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us.
So before we start asking questions, I know that there's no better way to learn about the work that Hope does than through storytelling and videos. So I'm going to show actually two short videos. One is a video about Hope and the work that Hope does. The next one is a client story, so we can hear from someone who was directly affected and whose life was improved by the work that Hope does. Let me
This has been good to me. Help me with my housing, help me with my nutrition, everything like that.
It's great. They're here every day, Monday through Friday, especially through this pandemic. Never stop. Provide people with nutrition every day.
In 1984, Mary Lou McNaney founded Hope Community Services with a single mission: help our people eat. She started by bringing food to the hungry at the local train station and soon discovered that there were many more in need of food. She then opened New Rochelle's first soup kitchen. She brought hope to those that needed it when they needed it. Her mission continues on almost 4 decades later. Since Mary Lou started Hope, the organization that was once born out of a mission to help our people eat continues to honor her legacy of serving our community. Over the years, Hope has grown to become a fully formed community service organization. We now offer Westchester's largest food pantry, housing for the homeless, child hunger initiatives like Hopeful Kids, a free summer camp for underprivileged kids, roving shower facilities for the community, Westchester's first kosher pantry, and coming soon, an after-school program. And that doesn't even include our community outreach, which includes toys for kids during the holidays, our Veterans Day awards, backpack giveaways, celebration of our mothers, Thanksgiving Day distributions, and so much more. Last year, Hope gave away over 2 million meals in response to the pandemic. A dedicated team of volunteers arose to carry us through the pandemic, and they remain with us into the new normal that sees an elevated need for food. We are for the community, by the community. We exist because of our supporters. And to this, I say thank you.
Homeless for years. I mean, maybe over 15 years. At times, I was getting a little bit depressed. I was staying with different friends and things like that. And some nights I'll just be on the street, really, with nowhere to go, sleeping at a train station, things. And then all of a sudden, things got a little rough. So I was staying at one place I was working. I was even helping my brother out one time. And all of a sudden, like everywhere that I went, I wasn't accepted here. Like get out and all this. So I made up my mind one day I couldn't take it no more, and I went to a shelter. They would bus you from the women's shelter here to Hope every morning. Got there in June 9th, as I recall. And June of July is when I was told, when the Section 8 came out, and I filled it out, and I came to here to Hope, and that's when Miss Barry helped me fill it out. It helped me a lot. I was able to eat dinners, breakfast, lunch. I was getting a care package today. It's going to help me out tremendously. Pantry food. After that, things started to seem to work out. They showed me a place in August. And I moved in September the 17th. They say patience is a virtue. It was with me. And I just had to sit back and wait. And when it was my turn, it was my turn sooner than I expected. I moved in on the 17th. I turned the key in here for the first time. It was just what I asked for. I wanted the kitchen to itself. I wanted the bathroom to itself. And that's what God gave me. Everything was to itself. And it's kind of big. It's big enough just for me. I want to encourage other people because I try to tell them and they don't believe in a system. But the system works. You have to believe, and you have to believe in God mostly, for things to take place. And I just hope I'm an encouragement to other women, That's yes.
Wow, I think it's beautiful to hear first person from someone who has been directly benefited by the work that Hope does, who has directly benefited from the work that Hope does. And so I want to start, Walter, with a question for you, which is, I was hoping that you could share with us a little bit, for those of us who may not know, what the need is like in our community. We, many of us live in New Rochelle or New Rochelle adjacent communities in Scarsdale or Larchmont and places directly linked to New Rochelle, and our synagogue community is here in New Rochelle. So maybe you could share a little bit with us about the need that exists in our community and how many people Hope is serving. And the way.
Sure, absolutely. So, I think it's really great to see that video of Charlene, who is one of our housing clients, because it really tells the story of self-sufficiency in that she was able to come to Hope and just needed some support in certain areas to really thrive in the next chapter of her life. And that's really what we try to do at Hope, really with all our programs. So when we're talking about what we're doing in the pantry and in the soup kitchen and housing and all these other programs, it really does boil down to self-sufficiency and having your most basic need met so that you can move forward with these other parts of your life. In terms of the need, the need, of course, was really exacerbated by COVID-19. Last year, the story of the need now really started last year in 2020 when the pandemic really began in New Rochelle, in that most of the other pantries, not most, but several of the other pantries in this area had ended up closing down, much like other businesses around the country. At Hope, we made a real conscious decision to make sure that we stood there for the community. And what that meant for us was we were going to have to do more than we've ever had before. And, the number of meals that we've given out, which is over 2 million meals, is really the best snapshot of what last year looked like, and really what 2021 is looking like. Now, prior to 2020, we had given out, I think 2019, 140,000 meals, just for some context, right? So 2021 ended up having more meals go out our door than the 10 previous years combined. And we were able to do that with so much support from the community, like Bethel. We had a lot of people rally around the organization. We've had volunteers come in to help. We had the National Guard come in to help us, and that really helped get us by 2020. But it wasn't enough to just provide food. We really had to look deep into what the actual need was, because at Hope, one thing we're really invested in is the idea of catching that unmet need that sometimes springs out when you offer certain services. One of the first things we did in 2020 as a response to COVID was we started a senior delivery program really on the fly. And what that meant was we had a rickety old van that got used maybe once a month or once a week for a while. And we put that into circulation daily. So in 2020, we hit about 1,000 seniors each week, with the intent to keep them in their building, because really early on in the virus, there was a prevailing thought that, and still is, that you didn't really need to or want to really go out where people were exposed, and that allowed us to keep them safe. And that was a measure that we did, again, on the fly. We also understood that there were communities around us that were too far from us, so we created mobile pantries. We created a mobile pantry by City Park in New Rochelle, because they were just too far away from our pantry and any other pantry. So again, we took that van, we set up shop, and we brought our pantry there. And that, to me, really is the story of Hope and addressing the need. Just in terms of some of the numbers that we've been looking at. Of course, the number of meals was really our most overwhelming stat, but we have a lot of other stats we're pretty proud of. One is, we were talking about housing, and last year we had 121 homeless individuals utilizing Hope Community Services. And that doesn't mean we placed 121 into housing, but it meant that in some capacity, through our programs that exist, we assisted them with either food, guidance, or actually getting them placed into housing. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But I also want to mention this other stat that I'm pretty proud of, which is meals served through our Hopeful Kids program. And I'll explain what that is. Between the 2020 and 2021 school year, Hope gave out over 17,000 meals to school kids that relied on school lunch as their source of food. And this program, Hopeful Kids, sprung from the idea that there was a family that came into our dining room one evening on a holiday weekend. And it was a Monday of, I think it was, I was told, it was Martin Luther King Day. But the point was, this family that had never utilized the soup kitchen before ended up coming in. It was a family for a young girl ended up passing out because she was malnourished. EMTs came by and said she wasn't getting food. And the reason that she didn't get food was because she relied on her school to provide her with her meal on that day. So we put this program in place to make sure that didn't happen, that kids that relied on school meals could still have a way to get food when school was not in session. So that's Hopeful Kids. One of the many ways, one of the many programs that we do here at Hope that really goes beyond just the standard view of the organization, which is probably mostly seen as the pantry in New Rochelle. And one of the largest in Westchester, but we are so much more than that. And if I Rabbi Sitkin, I'd like to just talk about some of the new programs, or not new programs, but some of the programs we do at Hope that people may not know about. When we're talking about housing, Hope has been doing housing for quite a while. And it's really central to the idea of course, self-sufficiency, in that you are meeting someone's most basic need in an effort to propel them further. So when you give them the space, you allow them to move further, just like Charlene did. Now, Hope has a few different housing programs. One is called our Housing Resource Center, which allows the individuals that reside in the Oasis shelter that's right across the street from us. They are allowed to utilize our dining room during the day as a place to get some respite, as a place to not have to wander out into the streets of New Rochelle when the shelter is closed down, and as a place to get food, to get breakfast, and really just to get away. That program also works with the residents in Oasis to help get them out of Oasis. And again, Charlene is a perfect example of that. But that is not an easy thing to do. Housing one homeless person really takes a lot, because you have to have a lot of things come into place at the right time. You also have to have the right person. You have to have someone that's committed to bettering themselves, and you have to have continuing and ongoing support around them as they enter into that next phase of housing for themselves. We also have other housing programs that offer permanent supportive housing to really anyone in Westchester. They don't just have to come from New Rochelle, and that's done through a collaborative with other housing entities in Westchester County. On the food end, just to kind of talk about all the different services that we do. Of course, we have the pantry, as we've talked about, and our soup kitchen. You know, our soup kitchen was really how we were founded. That was founded by, again, Mary Lou McNanny, who went out to the train stations in New Rochelle to provide people that she saw without food some sustenance so that they can have the most basic of needs. Part of that is also, we've just introduced our new kosher pantry in this year. And again, before, when I was mentioning that Hope looks to identify those unmet needs, this is another one. The Jewish community last year was not able to partake in the same level of food give outs that most of the other community had because of kosher restrictions. So this program was put into place so that anyone that seeks kosher foods has a place to get them for free. And that's, again, a much needed unmet need, which we are continuing to grow that program. Lynn mentioned, well, not in the video anyways, Lynn mentioned as part of the bio that you have a summer camp. Hope does a summer camp, which we're also very proud of. And again, the idea is we're offering respite to parents. We're offering kids an opportunity that have never really been able to do anything like that, an opportunity to have a free summer camp. So it's an experience that's meaningful for them. We have staff at Hope that have come up through the summer camp program that still talk about it. People ask us about this program quite a bit. We also have a lot of event programming through our outreach services. So the video that you saw mentioned some of that, in that we were looking at backpack giveaways. We give roughly about 1,000 backpacks out each year to the community. We did this year a Mother's Day celebration to honor the mothers in our community for everything that they do. We have a veterans ceremony. We give out toys during the holiday season. And that's really how we kind of outreach into the community. We have a lot of different avenues like that, but I just want to make sure that before I stop talking, that I really get I can convey that Hope is really not just a food pantry and soup kitchen, but we are really a fully formed community service organization that has really been growing, and we are continuing to grow. And we have a lot of new directions and a lot of ideas that we want to implement, but of course we need community for that. So I thank you for this forum to talk about that and just tell people a little bit more about Hope. And And that's all I have for my piece.
Thank you so much. It's like, it's unbelievable how really all the extensions of work that Hope Community Service is doing to meet different needs that arise in the community. The number that you like, I think the idea of going from what did you say, 149,000 meals to 2 million meals in a year, that jump is just staggering to me, that need. And I can only imagine the work that went in to being able to provide those meals for everybody. And Lynette, I have a question for you as the president of the board. But before I ask it, I just want to remind everybody here, I didn't say this before, that if as questions come up for you, you can chat them to me directly, and I'd be happy to ask them to Lynette and to Walter, if there's anything that you're thinking about that Hope does that you want to learn more about. But Lynette, I imagine a lot of us are sitting here thinking, wow, it's amazing. I feel really proud to have Hope Community Services in our New Rochelle community that's doing all this wonderful work. But me, as as myself, Zach Sitkin, what can I do that to help Hope in their work? What are some of the volunteer efforts that I can do? Because after all, it's one thing to learn about what a community needs and what some of the organizations in a community does to address those needs. It's another thing for us ourselves to get involved in the fight against hunger and helping people have housing. So as the president of the board and as someone who had their start at Hope as a volunteer, maybe you can speak a little bit to that. I think obviously giving money is one, but and a really, really important one, I imagine. But in addition to also giving money, what are some of the other ways that the people who are on this call can think to themselves, oh, I can get involved in Hope or addressing the needs of hunger in my community in this way? What are some of those ways?
Thank you, Rabbi Sitkin, and thank you everyone for being here and for this opportunity to tell you about our organization. So I actually was introduced to Hope Community Services about 11 years ago when I was looking for a mitzvah project, and really I was looking for a soup kitchen mitzvah project for my son who was about to have his bar mitzvah. And it was actually Bethel's Julie Rockowitz that introduced me to Hope Community Services, because at that time, I think that Hope's visibility was a lot less than it is today. So Julian and I went there. We started volunteering at the soup kitchen once a week. And it was such a positive experience in so many ways for us that it became a lot more than a mitzvah project. Julian now is 23 and my daughter is now 21. And they both, after serving in the soup kitchen for a number of years, we continued serving long after his bar mitzvah and long after her bat mitzvah. They still come and volunteer there when they're home. And when Julian was in high school, he set up a computer network in the corner of the dining room so that the clients could work on their resumes and also look for job opportunities. That was something that Hope wanted to do, and they needed someone with some computer expertise, which he happened to have. So he set that up for them. Robin was actually the one that reinstituted the summer camp that Walt was talking about. Hope used to have a summer camp years ago, but about 10 years ago, they stopped running it because they just didn't have the funds to do it. And that was something that she went to the executive director at the time, was I think 2017, I think. And she asked if that was something that she could bring back, because we had heard so many positive stories from people who went to it in the past. And we also had heard from other people that there was a huge need, not only for the kids to have something for them to do over the summer, but it would be very helpful for the parents as well, for the kids to have somewhere to go. So for what resonated, so that was my experience, my introduction to Hope Community Services. But what really resonated with me at the time was the way everyone in that dining room, from staff, volunteers, and clients, were all treated with dignity and respect. It didn't matter your religion, it didn't matter your age, it didn't matter the color of your skin, it didn't matter your ethnicity, nothing, it didn't matter. Everybody was treated with dignity and respect. And I just love that about it. I love the camaraderie between the volunteers, the staff, and the clients. And it was just an amazing atmosphere. You got to know the clients, you got to know the regular volunteers. and it really felt like a Hope family. So I decided that I wanted to get more involved with this kind of an organization. I felt they were helping a community, but I also loved the way they were helping the community. So I wanted to start going there regularly. I got my friend Shireen Stein, who is a fellow Bethel member, and she and I started going there weekly and making sandwiches. And one thing led to another. We just got more and more involved in a lot of different projects. It was the same philosophy. If we saw that there was a need they were trying to fill and they needed help with it, and if we had the ability to help with it, we did. And one thing led to another, and we just kept doing more things. So as a board member, we're trying to really we've been trying to reinvigorate our board over the last few years. And we've also been trying to grow our programming and extend our outreach. And as Walt said, if we see a need, we're trying to fill it. And I think we've been doing more and more of that over the last few years, particularly through COVID. We also do have an increased emphasis on self-sufficiency and empowerment, which Walt was talking about as well. But for me, it's interesting that although there's a lot of work to be done on the board level, and particularly because we have so many more programs, we've actually outgrown our current facility, and we're currently looking for a new building. Anyone has a building they want to throw at us? We're looking for a building, and we've started a capital campaign to try and raise the money so that we can purchase our own building that will enable us to add a lot of the programs and do a lot of the things that we're unable to do. And we're squeezing a lot of things. As I said, the computers are running in the corner of the dining room. We'd love to be able to have a nice big room so we can have multiple computers and someone helping the clients on a more regular basis. They're volunteers that want to do that. We just don't have the space to do it every day, particularly with the COVID restrictions. So for me, in spite of everything that needs to be done on a board level, I still enjoy volunteering there and do so every week. The camaraderie between the volunteers, the staff, and the clients when they come regularly, it's a wonderful experience. And the meaningfulness of the face-to-face volunteering is something that is very important to me. And I really find it a wonderful experience, both in terms of feeling good about making a difference, but also the Hope volunteer family really feels like a family. During COVID, a lot of new people came to volunteer that had never been to Hope before. A lot of our regular volunteers were in that vulnerable category, and they had to, we basically advised them to stay home at that time. This was before masks. And we found a lot of other people who were either working from home or lost their jobs came to help out. An amazing group of people, and they formed a real family. People who thought they would come for a week, maybe come for 1 or 2 times, maybe they'd come for a couple of weeks, they've stayed. And a lot of them actually do come every day, but at least they come, there are many who come every week, and they've gotten to become really good friends with each other. And it's just it's a beautiful feeling when you show up there to do the work that needs to be done. There are also a lot of I know that it's difficult for people who are working to volunteer, to come and volunteer during a working day. So we do also there are behind the scenes opportunities to volunteer as well. We have, for example, I don't know, I think you guys know Ellen Berman. She's a wonderful woman who works behind the scenes to make sure that there is a meal provided every night in our soup kitchen. She works with churches, with synagogues, with restaurants and other organizations to make sure that a meal is made every single night, Monday to Friday, for our soup kitchen. We have another way that people can get involved if the workday is difficult is by doing various types of drives. So there are obviously food drives. Right now, this time of year, we collect turkeys. We usually give out about 1,000 turkeys for Thanksgiving. We also are about to start doing our toy drive. We give out thousands of brand new toys to children every year just before Christmas. So, and that takes a lot of people. So there's manpower. We have wish lists where you could buy toys. You could do a toy drive either at your work or at your child's school. You could set up a toy drive. If a lot of toys are donated and it's difficult to get into your car, we can come and pick them up in a truck. So there are a lot of different ways. And then there's also, you could also host fundraisers. The good thing about donating and donating money to us is we have the ability to buy items at a reduced cost. A lot of people actually think, I should say this, a lot of people think that the food that we get is all donated, and a lot of it is. But in actual fact, we actually have to buy a lot of food, because if we want to make sure that everybody who comes through our food pantry gets a box of cereal or gets a box of pasta or something, like, we have to make sure, a can of tuna, we have to make sure we have enough of all particular items. So we do end up buying a lot of our items. We buy our food from Feeding Westchester, which is at a greatly reduced cost, but we do have to buy it. So I think that those are the different avenues that are available to get involved and to help us. And I have to say, I have to just give one quick shout out. I don't know if I should mention names, so I don't want to insult anyone by leaving them out, but I have to say that we needed masks during the pandemic when you couldn't buy disposable masks, and the Bethel Community came out. I know it was coordinated by Joyce Wexler and Susan Wollman, but they made thousands of masks for us, and they were a lifesaver, because our clients came in, although we did everything outside when the pandemic started, all the give outs were done outside, we required that everyone wear a mask, and we just didn't have masks to give them. And it was it was thanks to Bethel that we were able to provide masks to literally thousands of people. So it's these relationships that really make it possible for us to do everything that we do. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a couple of follow-up questions. First of all, we had a question from Joyce Goldklang about can you just share us where your location is now currently? Because I think there are people on the call who don't know that. So.
Okay.
Oh,
okay. We are located at 50 Washington Avenue, which is next to, it's between Washington and Union Avenue, kind of across from Montefiore Hospital, close to the train station, just behind the New Rochelle train station.
And great. So by the train station, and it's like you have to go. It's sort of, you have to go around the hospital, right, to the back to pull.
Right.
in.
So I actually, if I'm going with my GPS, and it is tricky the first time you go there, because St. Gabriel's Church is on the corner, and right next to it is the building that we're in. But there are a lot of different doors. But I typically put 1 Union Avenue into my GPS, even though our address is 50 Washington Avenue. I put 1 Union Avenue into my GPS if I'm coming from a strange place and I want to get there. And then if you're at that end of Union Avenue, the very first driveway, you'll see there's a big Hope banner. If you come into that parking lot, typically we say there's a blue door. If you go towards the blue door, you'll find us. Just otherwise give a call when you get there, and we'll come out and get you.
So here's my follow-up question. So there's ways of volunteering. Let's say I wake up tomorrow and I decide, you know what, I have some time, I want to go volunteer at the soup kitchen. What's the process for signing up to volunteer? Like, what does that look like? I don't think I could just show up, or maybe I could just show up, but maybe you could speak a little bit more to what that process is like. Also a process question is, if I wanted, you said one of the ways that we can get involved is by doing a drive, a food drive, a toy drive, a fundraiser drive. I know that coordinating drives takes a lot of logistics and coordinating, not just with our own community, but in conversation with Hope Community Services as well. So what would be the process for signing up or doing a drive that might benefit Hope as well? Maybe you could speak a little bit to that.
So I'm going to talk about the volunteer sign up, and Walt, I'll let you talk about the drive process. I actually meant to say this, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention it. We actually have a volunteer portal on our website, and we're working hard to make sure that every event that we have is set up on the volunteer portal. So at any point in time, you can go to the website and you can go and see what events we are going on. So you'll always see the pantry, you'll always see the soup kitchen. Around this time of the year, you'll see the Thanksgiving dinner, you'll see the toy give out event. So those everything will be on our volunteer portal, and It tells you how many people are needed, and you can go day by day, and it'll tell you the hours that people are needed. For example, on a Tuesday, we get deliveries of large containers of food. It always comes in on a Tuesday. Time varies a little bit, but you'll see that on there. And if you're a strong person and you have time on a Tuesday morning, it would be great if you come by and help us get those tons of food into the pantry. Because unfortunately, right now with COVID, everything is going in and then it's coming out again. So there's schlepping times, and then there's, so they're all on there on the volunteer portal. We're still working on getting it completely up to date. It is possible to phone or email us, but I know it's a lot easier and you'll get a lot quicker response if you look on the website. The other answer to your question, can you just show up? And the answer is really yes. You can show up. Volunteers on a give out day do show up. Volunteers for the kosher pantry, we typically have a sign up for that, and we know how many people are coming. The one thing that we want to make sure of is that if you show up for something, that you're needed. We don't want anyone to come and have a negative experience, like there were too many volunteers, I didn't have enough to do. So we're trying to put the numbers up there on the volunteer portal to make sure that we get the right number of people. Having said that, there are always people who think they're going to be able to make it. Something happens on that morning and they can't make it. There's always room for other people to come. So right now, if you have a look and you see that there's a particular time and it works for you, there is a number, an email address that's listed on the volunteer portal as well, that you can email and advise them that you're coming. And if they feel they don't need you, they'll let you know. But that's the best way, is through the volunteer portal.
And to answer your other question about some of the drives that we do, there are a few different ways to do that. So if we're talking about food drives, typically we like to provide autonomy to whoever is doing that. So those have been usually organized within groups. So Hope is pretty easy and open in terms of setting times to receive, and sometimes we can actually go and pick up if there are large orders or large collections of food. Same thing with the turkey drive that we're about to do. With fundraiser drives, those are a little different. That's something that we really want to explore more at Hope. And one of the things that we're looking to do is put together a fundraiser kit on our website, which will just allow anyone that's interested in doing a fundraiser for Hope to have some basic tools like QR codes for donating, logos, and just a few notes in terms of how to do the fundraiser. But again, with those, that we would really like to have support and allow some autonomy again for the groups to do that in whatever the way that they want. In the past, we've been part of some of those fundraiser drives. We've spoken on behalf of whatever group was collecting for us. So these can all be arranged through Hope directly, and you can arrange them through me as well. And I know we have Frankie there also to perhaps talk about the turkey drive. This might be a good opportunity for that if she's available.
Frankie? I'll say a word about the turkey drive. So Frankie Shachar, who's a member of Bethel, organizes the turkey drive here every year. So she, and by the way, she told me that they've been doing this turkey drive for 25 years. And that usually people from Bethel give enough money for us to buy somewhere around 225 to 275 turkeys, which is a lot of turkeys to give out on Thanksgiving. And if you want, that's like an easy way to get involved. Thanksgiving's coming up in a couple of weeks. If you wanted to do that, you could just write a check to Bethel for $25 and make it out for the Thanksgiving turkeys to Hope Community Services. And we can then collect that money and buy turkeys with it. So that's an easy way to get involved. I think I have another follow-up question though, which is about housing in particular. If we wanted to, let's say you're doing lots of work around feeding people. Let's say I was someone who was interested in working on the housing side. I know, Walter, you said to just provide one person housing is like a tremendous undertaking. So if I was someone who wanted to get involved in housing, what are some of the opportunities that I would have to volunteer in that way? Is there anything around advocacy with the city? Is there anything around like finding people appropriate accommodations? Like, what are the ways that one would volunteer? Maybe donating like actual like living supplies, things like kitchen utensils or couches or rugs, things to actually furnish people's apartments. So what are ways that we could volunteer to help people with their housing?
So there are a few ways for volunteering to work around housing, and some of them you did mention. One program that I didn't talk about earlier was a program called Showers for Hope. And this is a roving shower truck that moves around Westchester County with the notion that it's there to give individuals that don't have access to adequate shower facilities an opportunity to clean themselves. So this is really designed for the street homeless that maybe don't reside in a shelter, or maybe they do reside in a shelter and there's maybe some adequate facilities there. So we take these programs around Westchester County, and then we pair them with other things like food. We do flu shots, we've done COVID shots, health screenings. And there's certainly an opportunity here for that. So the shower trucks have really wound down for 2021, but they will begin probably in March or April of 2022. And that's something we always need volunteers for, because again, these are events, they occur on the weekends, typically, sometimes in the evenings, and they're there really to help the homeless community. And we need help in a lot of different ways. But you mentioned clothing. We need help for clothing too. We want to be able to provide them with clean clothing, clean towels. Hygiene packets are important. Anything that will help someone transition into housing. So, one example that we just did with Charlene and some other individuals that were recently placed was we gave them care packets for their move into their new home. So we gave them sheets, towels, some dish sets, some basic cutlery utensils, just so they're not starting out with nothing. And that's where we could use some support to try to get some of those items together. In terms of volunteering outside of the shower truck, the Homeless Resource Center program, which I mentioned earlier, which is the day program for those that are living in the Oasis shelter, that's a program that we've been really looking to try to see if we can get some activities for that population during the day to make their experience more meaningful. So we've implemented a few programs, but we really want to put together a hearty schedule for them. And we want to be able to get volunteers to help with perhaps like art classes. We've talked about maybe even a movie club, any type of activity that somebody might be willing to host with the homeless population to give them really something meaningful to do while they're in our kitchen. So we're also looking for even thoughts and ideas. If anyone has a particular skill that they might be willing to share or teach this community, that's one way that we can really help along with the housing population.
Wonderful. We got a question about grant writing, which is, does Hope have someone like on staff who works on grant writing? Are they looking for more people to work on grant writing? Because that might be a way for someone here who's working that might be also get involved.
So yes, Hope does not have a dedicated grant writer. We have some friends that will do grant writing for us on a per diem basis. But I have found with grant writing, it's good to have multiple sources for grant writing, because we've found that some people have an expertise with writing for a certain type of grant. So if anyone is interested in grant writing, certainly please reach out. I'd love to have a conversation. And really along those same lines, Hope is also looking to get a part-time fundraiser as well to help with not just grant writing, but really the idea of developing all these programs that we're talking about.
I also just want to say about the grant writer. It would be great if someone had time to give. Part of what's very time consuming with grants is the grant research, trying to find other grants that we haven't, that we're leaving on the table. So I think it would be amazing if someone had time and knew about grants and had access to the grant databases. That would be amazing. I mean, we could organize that access if you didn't have it, but if someone had time to do some grant research, I think that would be really awesome too.
Thank you. So I have just so many ideas. I'm writing all these things down for us to start working on as a community. I can imagine hearing this conversation and feeling, wow, the need is really great. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I don't know where to start or where the most important need right now might be. Obviously, if we have a particular skill, right? Like if we're an art teacher and we have time, we could run an art class. Like that seems to be a natural fit. But if you could just maybe, this is the last question, I think, if you could just give us the top 3 ways that you think you would benefit for us volunteering now, what those might be. Is it working in the soup kitchen? Is it putting on a toy drive or a food drive? Is it making these hygiene packages or these care packages for people who are moving into new homes? Like, what would you say the top 3 volunteering needs are right now that you can sort of articulate and identify at this point in time?
So I will give my 2 cents, and I want to give Lynn an opportunity because we're both tackling this from different angles. In terms of volunteering, we're about to go into a really busy season at Hope, where we have, of course, our Thanksgiving drive is coming. We have our toy distribution, right around the corner. We need to start gathering for that too. It's really going to be a busy time for us. So I think we could use coordination and help with the various drives that we need that are coming down the pike with Thanksgiving and the toy distribution. So I would say right now, that's probably number 1. Number 2 is our pantry, particularly on those Tuesdays that Lynn mentioned. We have Tuesdays are a very, very busy day for us, and we really need a lot of help on that particular day. So I'd say the pantry we could use some help with, but not just Tuesdays, really throughout the week. We could use help in our pantry. And third, I would say is really help with fundraising and fundraising drives, because we are about to end our year next month, and we've added a lot of programming, and this notion that we're going to find a new building as well. That these are all expenses that we're incurring right now in order to make the organization better in the future, and we really need support for this. So I'd say fundraising help is probably number 3, but I would like to get Lynn's input on this as well.
Yep, everything you say is absolutely true. One of the things we're in the quiet phase right now with respect to the capital campaign and looking for a building. If anyone has any expertise with that, we do have someone who is working on our capital campaign with us. We have people with capital campaign experience, but once we do identify a building, it would be, if anyone has expertise, working with the city of New Rochelle in terms of moving forward once we have a building, and anything like that, building management, that would be really helpful. That's more of a future than an immediate need, although it would be nice to start that conversation now. I think Walt's right. Our immediate needs are in the next few months. That's what we need to focus on. Pantry always needs people every day of the week, really. Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays probably are the busiest days in the pantry, preparing for the Wednesday give out and during the Wednesday give out. We are opening up our dining room again. We've been on a takeout model since COVID began, but we're starting to open up our dining room again on the 8th of November. So we will start reaching out to have people come and volunteer, serve meals, and help us out there as well. But I think that covers it for now for immediate needs.
Thank you. And I do want to just say that we've been in contact with Ellen Berman and Shayna Klopot, who I think is on this call, or was at least on this call for a little bit. She might have had to jump off. Shayna Klopot, who is a parent in the religious school, her daughter Sophie, is interested in volunteering and sort of taking the lead on organizing cooking the meals once a month for Hope. So if you are interested in joining that effort, it was run for many years by Barbara Engelson-Klee, and she did a wonderful job. She had it down to a science, really a science. It was amazing, and women who would come from Bethel to help cook for Hope, and so now we're taking that mantle, and Shayna's taking on that mantle of leadership, and it's starting. Oh, she's here. I'm here. Feel free to reach out to me. So shayna.klopot@gmail.com. So if you'd like to get involved in helping to cook meals for Hope once a month, Shayna's the right person to go to. And as you can see, and as you've heard, there's so many different ways to get involved in volunteering with Hope. And the conversation doesn't have to end here. If you are someone who really wants to get involved in either putting together a drive or working on collecting toys or things like that, or anything that's ongoing, please contact me, and we can start working on helping, or you can contact Lynette and we can start working on helping meet the needs that Hope has. I just want to thank everybody who's come to participate in tonight's conversation. It's a really important conversation, and it's just the start of this conversation. We're gonna work on this all year long. And I want to just thank Lynette and Walter so much for your time and for coming to share a little bit about what Hope Community Services does for our community here in New Rochelle. And we're so privileged to have you here, and we're looking forward to being able to partner with you in the future to address the needs that are so great in our community. So thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you having us here, and thank you to Bethel for always being a great partner. You have been for many years. So we really appreciate your partnership. Thank you very much. And thank you for this opportunity.
Have a good night, everybody. Wishing you well.
Thank you, Shayna.
And
Good night, everybody.
Have a good night, all.
Good night. Thank you.